Hi everybody. Being as everyone's stuck inside here for the next little bit, kind of, sorta, I thought maybe I'd give a little tour of our sugar bush operation and show your kids if you like, and if you've never been here before, when things clear up, we'd like to have you out for a visit. So we're gonna give a little tour. I'm gonna make a bunch of videos throughout the day and just show you what's going on. At Nicholls sugar bush, we tap out 850 trees this year. We have one tree on a bucket. That's the only one we have on a bucket. That's Paisley Ryland's tree. Yeah, Paisley and Ryland. So I got my little helpers here with me this morning, and we're gonna check the bush out. So we have one tree. It's running pretty good here today. We got about 3/4 of a bucket here, and that pail was empty yesterday morning. Not sure how well this is gonna work with my helpers, but we're gonna give it a whirl. So we've moved up to the top end of our sugar bush. This is our newer end of the bush that we've started tapping in the last 4 or 5 years. Some of it's just up to this year. We run on a vacuum system, pipeline systems throughout our bush. All of our trees, except for that one, are all hooked together via these little blue lines from tree to tree. What we do is we drill a hole into the tree. You can see there's last year's hole. And the sap drips out, runs down this drop line and into our lateral lines. And they're all joined up to these bigger pipes. They're 1 inch throughout the bush. And we have, a few thousand feet of that bigger line. But to get up over a hill, which we have an issue with in our bush, not all of our bushes on gravity, we use what we call sap ladders. And this is a sap ladder. So this line is about 14 feet high, and with the vacuum pump, I'll show you here in a little bit, we're able to lift sap. So with every pound of vacuum that we run on our lines, we're able to lift that sap a foot. So this line, this blue line right here, it runs into all these trees, and it gravity feeds plus a vacuum down to this point. This is the lowest point, and from there we lift the sap. So let's see if we can get a... You see those lines shaking and rattling? And that's lifting the sap up. So from here, it goes all the way up to this top, and it runs this line, about 700, 800 feet to our sugar shack. And it'll shake and rattle here all day long as we have vacuum running. So on our smaller lines, where our drop lines are attached, at the end of the line, in order to keep our lines tight, because the tighter they are, the better the sap runs through them, we have these plastic fittings, and they're like a slip knot. Get up, Paisley. So what would happen if a tree or something falls, or a limb falls on this line, hits it down, it'll release this fitting, and it'll slide back and drop some slack in the line with a little bit of forgiveness. So if we see a line that's loose, not tight, or something's falling on it, we can just come to this fitting, we just cinch it up, and get that line nice and tight and flat for it to run again. So I'm down here just about at the shack. The shack is right here. And down at the bottom end of our bush, and for 3/4 worth of our bush, we run on what we call a wet-dry vacuum system. So the closer we get to the shack, as all these lines hook into our main lines here. I'm gonna turn you around, maybe. Nope, I don't know how to do that. Anyway, we run on a wet-dry vacuum system. So on our bottom line here is where our sap gets sucked through. And because we're pulling vacuum so far, we need this top line to get vacuum to the top end of our bush. Because this bottom line is so full of sap, with so many trees and the way it's running, especially today, our trees at the top end of the bush wouldn't get vacuum. So we use these two lines hooked together. They're hooked together right here in parallel. So the sap travels in the bottom and the vacuum travels at the top. So here we have another smaller sap ladder. This one's only about 4 feet tall. It's coming off of this bottom line. So it lifts up, our sap comes in the center pipe, and then it drops down to the bottom line and into the shack. So this one's right at the shack door. This wet dry vacuum line, it runs for 750 feet up through the bush, around the curve, and over the hills. So I'm down here at our sugar shack and at our pump house. I'm going to show you what we use for a vacuum and what we use to power our shack. It's going to be kind of noisy, so I won't do too much talking. I'll try to explain it out here, and then I'll just show you what's going on in the generator shed. So we use it's an old dairy pump. It's a surge vacuum pump that we use to put vacuum throughout our bush. We've pretty well got it maxed out with what we're capable of doing with that right now. We may have to go to a bigger pump here in the future. And being as we're in the bush, we don't have power back here, so we have a big, you see her sitting out there, that old bell generator that we use to power our shack with all of our lights and our vacuums and our pumps and so on. So I'll give you a quick little look in here and show you what's going on. And again, it's going to be loud, so just bear with me here. So this is our vacuum pump down here. That's what creates the vacuum throughout our bush. Just all the suction on our trees. That generator required one that big to run our reverse osmosis system that we implemented into our bush this year, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So I moved inside. This is our reverse osmosis room. This is where our extractor is, this blue unit right here. And this is what puts the vacuum into the lines from our vacuum pump. It's plumbed in through this white hose, and the sap comes into here. See the sap rolling in through those three lines. It's running pretty good here this morning because it's about 13 degrees outside. So this unit, as it fills up, there's this float on the back. And each one of these tanks fill up and they switch back and forth. And what happens is when the float fills up inside, it's going to dump. It's about 20 liters of sap comes in through that tank every time it dumps. And I haven't timed it yet today. I imagine it's probably about that 3-minute mark. The other day it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds. It was dumping every 20 liters. So it dumps into a filter basket just to catch any wood chips or anything that might have got left in the holes when we tapped them. This tank here is 800 gallons that we hold of raw sap. This unit is a refractometer, so we use this to check the sugar content in our sap. When it comes in, it's about 2.5% sugar out of all that. The rest of it's all water, and it's only just a tiny little bit of sugar in it that we're using. So what we have a reverse osmosis unit. So our line runs out the bottom into our reverse osmosis unit. And what this unit does is separates the sugars and the minerals and all the stuff that we want to make maple syrup out of the water. So this unit we put through about 4 gallons, 3-4 gallons a minute. It separates, and our concentrated sap, which comes out right now, we're just running about 4 or 5% sugar. I'd like to get it higher, but I'm still learning. It goes through this top line, it goes into the tank inside, and our separated water comes into this tank. This is a 600-gallon tank. You can see it's about half full of water. We're just doing a wash cycle right now, so it's not actually processing sap. Every 4 hours, this unit requires a rinse cycle and a wash cycle to clean the membrane. So on the back, there's a high-pressure pump, and this back canister's full of little fan blades, and it pressurizes the sap. This front tank, there's a membrane in it, and that's what separates the sugar from the sap. So now that our RO has finished its wash cycle, we're now processing the raw sap into concentrate. So in this tank, you see that this is pure, clean water. There's no sugar content, just pure water. Our concentrated sap goes through our wall. It runs into another 800-gallon tank in our main boiling room. And it'll run like that as long as the sap's flowing through the RO. So in the floor here we have another 800-gallon sap tank that comes out of our RO machine. And it pumps up to a 150-gallon tank in the ceiling. It's kind of foggy in here today because of the steam. When it goes up there, it's cold sap. And it runs through this black pipe right here. It goes into the top of our hood of our evaporator. When it goes in there, just like ice cold water. So we use the steam from our pans, our evaporator, to preheat our sap. And inside our hood, there's 93 or 95 feet of line. It comes out this side. It goes into our float box. Now coming out here, I can just hardly hang on to that pipe. It gets that hot from the steam. So it comes into our float box. You can see it bubbling into here. And now we're adding hot sap in our evaporator instead of cold sap, which increases our production greatly. So our float measures our level inside. You can see our sap boiling away in our back pan. So it boils back here till it gets partly finished. Comes up into our front pan. Our back pan runs about a foot deep. Our front pan is shut off right now. It's not requiring any more sap. It's only about 2 inches deep. And it goes through our float box. And inside here there's different channels. You can see a channel and a channel, a channel, and another channel. And our sap flows down and it goes through. There's a little hole down here. It goes back and forth and back and forth. And as it travels, it gets thicker and thicker, becoming more to syrup. This is the side we're taking off today. See, we have our filter and we use an automatic draw-off system. So our thermostat, or our temperature gauge, right now it's reading 210 degrees is what our sap is boiling at. We're requiring it to go to 215.8 before it takes off. Once this temperature matches this temperature and goes higher, our valve down here automatically opens. Once this here is open, crank that up, and automatically draws off in through another filter process. Also in our sugar bush, with the use of our hood, we collect all of our steam that comes out of the sap. Inside our hood we have drip trays, and we collect all of our water, and we use our clean steamed hot water for all of our washing of our dishes, our filters, our hands, our lines in the spring, etc. And this runs boiling hot water all day long. So our evaporator is a wood-fired evaporator. Inside it's lined full of bricks to help keep the heat inside and under the pan. We fill our evaporator about every 10 minutes with a wheelbarrow load of wood. Dougie's struggling today. He's a little not good with the camera watching him. He's feeling the pressure. Our smokestack on our evaporator runs about 800 degrees. So that's how hot our fire gets. And we'll do that in again about 10 minutes. So as you can see, our thermostat, our thermometer has reached the desired temperature. Our syrup comes off and run it through this first set of filters. As maple syrup boils, the minerals and sugars create what they call a sugar sand in the syrup. So this first filters, cloth filters, take that rough bit of sugar sand away from the syrup. So this will run as long as our temperature is where we need it to be. Once it drops below our set temperature, that valve will close and our syrup will stop. So after we take our syrup off our evaporator, we bring it in and we finish it over propane. We take it to 219 degrees, which is 7 degrees above the boiling point of water, which is what we require for maple syrup. And we run it through this thing, and this is a filter press. And it pumps through all these filters right here. It takes any sugar sand or any sort of objects we don't want out of it. It goes into our bottling unit. Sparkly, crystal clear. And from there, we fill our jugs, whatever we need. So that pretty much concludes our tour of our sugar bush. I'd like to thank you for joining in. I hope you've learned something and following me from pail to jug. If you have any questions, just put in the comments there and I'll see if I can answer them for you. Hope you've enjoyed.